The truth was out there, but NASA didn't want you to know. David Grusch, a seasoned intelligence officer, had stumbled upon the revelation of a lifetime, the truth about an imminent alien invasion. His startling discoveries threatened to unravel decades of secrecy. Grusch started off lightly before venturing into the murky realm of the government's best-kept secrets. However, what transpired was a plunge down an interplanetary conspiracy rabbit hole. His research led him to secret files that revealed plans for a systematic cover-up by NASA and other elite institutions, as well as testimony from high-ranking individuals who had met with extraterrestrial entities. A continuous campaign to silence him was launched as he was about to go public with details of encounters, recovered spacecraft, and direct communications with extraterrestrial species. Is it possible that an alien invasion is not a distant future event but an operation already in progress, systematically manipulating global events to pave the way for their arrival? What if NASA is purposefully withholding proof of extraterrestrial contact in order to quell fears around the world, even at the expense of the truth? Join us as we explore how NASA silences UFO leaker David Grusch after revealing the truth about the alien invasion. The idea of aliens and that other worlds might be inhabited actually goes back to ancient times. By the 18th century, the question had become a hotly debated topic among Western philosophers, physicists, and theologians, and the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations had gained widespread acceptance. However, the 19th century saw a shift. It was around that time that sightings of what some claimed were flying ships began to surface. People back then seemed to be describing things that were very familiar to them. For example, they saw ships and other vessels that would ordinarily float on the sea in flight. Some would witness ships propelled by steam. People started talking about UFO sightings more frequently in the summer of 1947, which some people thought were from aliens. What happened in 1947? A pilot by the name of Kenneth Arnold was flying his small plane near Mount Rainier in Washington state. As he was flying around, he said he saw some sort of glimmer or shine that caught his eye and was concerned that maybe he was going to have a collision with another aircraft. When he looked, he saw what he described as 9 very odd-shaped vessels flying in formation. Arnold informed the proper authorities at a neighboring airport about his observations after touching down, and he even spoke with the media afterward. Arnold never actually said the words flying saucers himself, but when pressed for an explanation, he described the object's motion as they flew like a saucer would if you skipped it across the water. As a result, the headline "Flying Saucers" stuck. Nearly all Americans were familiar with the term flying saucer according to a Gallup poll conducted 6 weeks following the incident. For some, this marked the start of what is now known as the flying saucer era in the concept of unidentified flying objects. A number of additional citizens of the nation soon started reporting seeing the same objects in the sky. Within weeks, the U.S. Air Force decided to look into the reports. Arnold's story also triggered a lot of press interest, and soon the international media were covering the story. It was a worldwide phenomenon within months. In the United States, 2 things occurred simultaneously. Firstly, there were investigations supported by the government, particularly inside the Air Force. Starting in 1947, the Air Force set in motion a number of different projects, all basically interested in one question: do UFOs represent a national security threat? A thorough scientific investigation of these matters was not of interest to the government. On the other hand, from 1947 to 1950, you had a lot of the general public who were just utterly fascinated with the mystery of flying saucers. What are they? Are they real? If they are real, who's behind them? Some people threw around the idea of aliens, but that's not really the major theory that people bought into. Most people, if they thought the sightings were real, believed they were either secret weapons of the US military or secret weapons or secret aircraft of the Soviets. Thus, flying saucer clubs arose from this infatuation, which might be compared to fan organizations in the 1950s and 1960s. Those laid the groundwork for UFO groups to expand from a regional to a national and eventually a global presence. The government has looked down on UFOs ever since a 1960s ill-conceived program named Blue Book attributed all sightings to conspiracies or weakly explained them away. For decades afterward, lawmakers and military officials mocked them and were afraid for their political careers if they gave them any serious consideration. Although the stigma has been fading away for a while, credible sightings were ignored due to it. As Senator Marco Rubio points out, UAPs are a threat to national security, whether they are Russian, Chinese, something else, or malfunctioning equipment. Both Obama and Clinton had previously made statements that seemed to concede the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Trump's National Intelligence Director John Radcliffe said that some UFO evidence seems to show objects with technologies that we don't have and, frankly, that we are not capable of defending against. Still, for a long time, the authorities did little when people reported sightings. The Air Force was known for its clandestine and oftentimes secretive operations. A large majority of UFO sightings were actually people witnessing secret warplanes like the U-2, according to documents revealed by the government over a long period of time. The Air Force's efforts to limit public disclosure are hardly surprising. However, among other things, that stringent oversight has provided fuel for conspiracy ideas throughout the years. The government isn't shooting straight with us became the idea among UFO believers. We must find a way to persuade these individuals to reveal all the knowledge they possess. From the perspective of our technical hopes and fears, as well as the Cold War itself, the Cold War had a profound and influential impact on American perceptions of UFOs. Up to the 1990s, a decline in interest occurred once the Cold War ended. Though from the late 1990s into the early 2000s, media coverage was nominal. Everything changed when details regarding the Pentagon's clandestine UFO program came to light in 2017. As a result, people started to be more curious about UFOs again. The question of whether or not these objects are extraterrestrial remains central to the media's coverage of UFOs. If they aren't extraterrestrials, then whatever military service are they from? Are these individuals who were spreading the sighting accounts and narratives doing it out of the goodness of their hearts, or are they con artists? So, why are some saying the United States has recovered UFOs? David Grusch, a former government official with experience in the National Reconnaissance Office and the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, has just gone public with some strange statements. Grusch says that in recent years he worked with the federal government's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force. Yes, that's a real thing, set up to investigate reports of strange flying objects. Grusch says that he's been told of secret government programs that have intact and partially intact vehicles of non-human origin. He says he's been told both the US government and other governments have been engaged in a publicly unknown Cold War to try to reverse engineer technology from these crafts. Grusch says all this information has been illegally withheld from Congress. So before he left government, he filed a whistleblower complaint with the intelligence community's Inspector General and gave information to Congress too. In addition to that, he is saying a few other things. Some of these recoveries included biologics, and these biologics were not human. Naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you uncover dead pilots. Grusch had previously told NewsNation, and it's true, dare you believe it or not. As unbelievable as that sounds, but is it true? Some so-called whistleblowers are honest and have good evidence, some are complete nuts, and some are in the middle. Grusch admits he has no first-hand knowledge of these purported programs. He hasn't seen any craft or certainly any dead alien pilots. Rather, he says he's repeating what other people have told him. Who are these people? Does he really know what they are saying is true? What evidence does he have? Such details have not been made public by him. It would be unlawful to provide such facts, as supporters say, because they are classified. Noting that it would be illegal to deceive either the Inspector General or Congress, they also contend that he divulged the secret information he was aware of to both. Skeptics, though, wonder if Grusch isn't merely rehashing urban legends that have been circulating among UFO believers for some time, and they even go so far as to call him a naive sap or a fabulist. The fact that prominent news outlets have been hesitant to publish Grusch's work thus far is also brought up by them. Despite offering his story to Politico, the New York Times, and the Washington Post, none of them were interested. By highlighting legitimate reports of strange aerial encounters, outlets like the New York Times and Congress brought the UFO topic into the mainstream. Two establishments, the New York Times and Congress, have contributed to the subject of UFOs acquiring an unexpected degree of popular credibility in the last several years. Conspiracy theorists, fringe characters, and supermarket tabloids have always been the go-to sources for information regarding claims of alien craft or life forms, as well as government cover-ups. In contrast, believers in UFOs have recently had success by shifting the conversation away from exaggerated allegations of aliens toward what some may refer to as weird in the sky. Leslie Kean, an independent journalist, published a book titled UFOs, Generals, Pilots, and Government Officials Go on the Record in 2010. The book listed sightings of unusual objects in the sky from credible sources in recent decades, but Kean did not state whether or not these objects were extraterrestrial. The primary objective was to establish the veracity of these occurrences and save the explanations for a later time. The book's preface was penned by John Podesta, who has long been a supporter of UFO disclosure, was chief of staff for President Clinton, and went on to serve as a top advisor in the White House for Presidents Obama and Biden. After writing another book investigating evidence for an afterlife, Kean got a scoop. A former defense official, Christopher Mellon, brought her to meet a man named Luis Elizondo, who just left his job at the Pentagon. According to Elizondo, there was a clandestine government program that looked into allegations of UFOs by military pilots, and they found footage of the pilots' shocked reactions as the objects made movements that couldn't be explained. The videos were authentic. Kean approached former New York Times journalist Ralph Blumenthal, who pitched the story to the Times, and it ran in December 2017. The message that the Pentagon was seriously considering UFOs was the main takeaway for many. Actually, things were trickier than that. After Senate Democratic leader Harry Reid requested the program, Congress imposed it on the Pentagon. The wealthy philanthropist Robert Bigelow, who was paranoid about UFOs and the supernatural, had convinced Reid to set aside funds in government spending bills for this exact reason. According to Gideon Lewis Krauss of The New Yorker, the program hasn't done much since contracting Bigelow's company, except from collecting the tapes. Doubters began to wonder if Elizondo had inflated his significance in the show as well. However, the plot thickened when the Times article prompted the federal government to launch a more thorough investigation into unexplained sightings, with the rationale being that although these might not be extraterrestrials, they might be covert technologies developed by an enemy nation that the United States must comprehend. The Pentagon publicly announced its Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force in 2020. It was renamed in 2021 and then again in 2022 due to new congressional legislation expanding it, and it's currently known as the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. This is the office with which Grusch worked. By 2021, everyone from Barack Obama to Donald Trump's National Intelligence Director John Ratcliffe was now openly acknowledging that the government had seen strange objects in the sky that they didn't fully understand. Obama's former CIA Director John Brennan went further, saying these phenomena might involve some type of activity that some might say constitutes a different form of life. So, everyone now agrees there's weird in the sky, and we don't know what it is. But it's still pretty rare for an official to nod directly to the alien hypothesis. The new claims are far more mind-boggling, involving crashed UFOs and a government cover-up. Another persistent assertion within the UFO community was that the government possessed extraterrestrial objects rather than merely observing them, material that claims to have come from wrecked cars or, alternatively, the cars themselves. Hard, tangible proof. Although variations on this assertion have circulated for quite some time, it has surfaced from several sources associated with Blumenthal and Kean in the past few years. Luis Elizondo, for instance, told Tucker Carlson in 2019 that he believed the U.S. government did have material from an aircraft but said he couldn't go into more detail. And this claim, too, got some mainstream media legitimation when Blumenthal and Kean wrote a follow-up New York Times report in 2020. They quoted Eric Davis, who had worked as a subcontractor and consultant for the Pentagon UFO program, claiming the government had materials from off-world vehicles not made on this Earth. Harry Reid, by then retired, also spoke to the Times. After looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports, some were substantive, some not so substantive, that there were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession, he said. It is extremely important that information about the discovery of physical materials or retrieved craft come out. According to Reid, he was informed that Lockheed Martin possessed some materials, however, the Pentagon refused to provide him permission to examine them. In the meanwhile, the larger Pentagon UFO project known as AARO was getting launched, but the initial reports and hearings involving its officers failed to impress, failing to disclose anything noteworthy. Yet the chatter in the UFO community was that something was coming. Blumenthal and Kean assert that anonymous sources support Grusch in his findings. They cite an on-the-record statement from a retired colonel called Carl Nell, who was supposedly associated with Grusch in their report. Nell endorsed both his character and his claims of a secret 80-year arms race for technology deriving from non-human intelligence. Then Grusch continued speaking even more shockingly. He told News Nation that it's true that the authorities have found dead pilots of these planes. Oddly, that assertion was missing from the original narrative by Keane and Blumenthal. In a statement released by the AARO, the government agency Grusch was associated with, it was stated, to date, AARO has not discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently, meaning they couldn't confirm any of this. But where are the specifics? Would every president be either so deferential to the security state or kept so ignorant by them? Would other governments have successfully kept this secret too? The next step, according to both the believers and the skeptics, is for Congress and the intelligence community's Inspector General to examine Grusch's secret assertions. The hearing is part of Congress's ongoing effort to demand greater openness from intelligence agencies about UAPs on the grounds that they pose a threat to national security. UAPs, whatever they may be, may pose a serious threat to our military and our civilian aircraft, and that must be understood, said Democratic Representative Robert Garcia of California. We should encourage more reporting, not less, on UAPs. The more we understand, the safer we will be. What might extraterrestrial astronomers perceive if they were to peer down on Earth from faraway planets? We have been scouring the skies for quite a while, however, there has been very little success in locating potentially livable extraterrestrial bodies. Despite decades of searching for identifying radio signals, no hard proof of extraterrestrial life has been found so far. Although astronomers have pinpointed a few potential locations in the universe where life might exist, as well as the odd unexplained signal, suppose that was the case. But what if there was, and what if they were looking back, trying to find us? Would they know there is life on Earth as we keep unintentionally sending signals into space? That's a topic that researchers have been trying to answer for a while now. Hold the mirror up to yourself in space, and what would they see of us, says Jacqueline Faherty, an astrophysicist at the American Museum of Natural History in the U.S. We're looking, that means other worlds might be looking too. More than 5,500 exoplanets, which are planets outside of our solar system, have been discovered so far. However, these findings are still in their early stages. It is probable that the Milky Way is home to trillions of worlds. On a few of these planets, we have begun searching for chemical fingerprints in their air that could suggest life, as well as technical fingerprints that could be radio messages broadcast to Earth by sentient beings, either on purpose or by mistake. For the better part of a century, Earth has been shamelessly announcing its presence to the galaxy. The most notable period was from 1900 up to World War II, says Howard Isaacson, an astronomer at the University of California, Berkeley in the U.S. When our radio transmissions were stronger, they needed to be more powerful because the radios that people listened to didn't have sensitive receivers, he says. We continue to broadcast radio signals today, from TV shows to satellite communications, but in a less detectable way. Radio stations don't want to broadcast into space, says Thomas Beatty, an astronomer at the University of Wisconsin in the U.S. They want to broadcast to the ground. Other, more modern forms of communication, like mobile phone signals, are unlikely to be detectable. However, not every one of our signals is as weak. Mars, Jupiter, and even the Sun's outer regions are just a few of the destinations explored by our many spacecraft around the solar system. The most distant of these, the Voyager 1 spacecraft operated by NASA, is located 15 billion miles from Earth and can only be contacted through the Deep Space Network, a robust system of dishes on our planet. The nearest stars will have had ample time to receive the signals and transmit their own message by 2031, making them a potential research subject worth considering. But what if alien astronomers were more dedicated? They might try and observe our planet before receiving any such signals. If they can see our planet pass in front of our sun, known as a transit, they could see sunlight passing through our atmosphere and pick out its different gases. Another possible indicator of human-caused industrialization on Earth is the presence of chlorofluorocarbons, which can originate from aerosols, refrigerants, and other sources. We're pretty sure they can only be produced by technology, says Macy Houston, an astronomer at the University of California, Berkeley in the US. By 2150, urbanization might have swelled by 10 times its current levels, and we might then shine like a beacon to modern telescopes. City lights, rather than air pollutants or radio transmissions, may be one of Earth's most illuminating techno-signatures. In 2021, Beatty calculated that the sodium emitted from such lights could be detectable in a planet's atmosphere. It has very sharp spectral features, says Beatty. You'd never get that through a natural process. As it stands, Earth probably isn't densely populated enough to be detectable in that way, at least not with the telescopes we have. There are fewer than 1,000 urban areas on this planet. It's far from being an ecumenopolis, a city that spans the entire planet like Coruscant in the Star Wars movies. However, according to Beatty, if growth keeps up at its present rate, urbanization might have increased by a factor of 10 by 2150, making us visible to modern telescopes. We should not be surprised if extraterrestrial civilizations with better telescopes can detect our presence. Extraterrestrial astronomers may be observing Earth from their 330T space telescope right this second. Our planet's habitability may be deduced even by extraterrestrial scientists using a little telescope that could only make out a small dot. It would be possible to create a basic map of Earth's surface using the light emitted by our planet, taking into account its rotation and tilt to display landmass, oceans, and coasts. You can study anything with a single light source, says Faherty. All of this raises the question of whether we really want to be so noticeable. In movies, we always get invaded. Despite the prevalence of UFO encounters, many ideas have proposed explanations for the lack of contact with extraterrestrial beings. Statistically, extraterrestrial civilization should exist since we know there are an infinite number of stars in the universe and that there are planets close by that seem more suitable for life than Earth. Extraterrestrials' radically different goals and ways of thinking would be the most reasonable justification for their existence, assuming they exist at all. Cixin Liu's The Three-Body Problem is the most comprehensive analysis of alien life that we have come across so far. It offers the dark forest answer to the Fermi paradox, and it is terrifying, creative, nihilistic, and magnificent all at the same time. This is how it works: vast numbers of interstellar aliens exist. However, revealing your location as a species in the vast cosmos means that a civilization far more advanced than you will almost certainly send a missile going nearly the speed of light into your sun and destroy your solar system to prevent you from evolving into a competitive civilization. The one who shoots first survives, and the one who stays silent survives. That is why aliens do not attempt to communicate across our galaxy, and why we should possibly stop trying. The dark forest theory is both fascinating and dreadful. In reality, scientists are more eager to make our presence known, occasionally even sending out purposeful messages into the universe, such as a famous high-powered radio signal containing a simple pictorial on humanity sent by the now-defunct Arecibo radio telescope in Puerto Rico in 1974. Earth is likely to gain greater visibility as a result of human activity, as long as we do not wipe ourselves off first by nuclear or other catastrophic means. Suvas Nawar says that alien astronomers could even one day spot the cloud of satellites orbiting our planet. We would need to have 1 billion times what we have now, which sounds like a lot, he says. But in just a few decades, we moved from having 1 car to having over 1 billion. Maybe we could do more to get our names out there, like the Arecibo message, if we're really keen on making first contact. There have been very few more efforts up to this point. At the moment, there are less obvious but still observable indicators of our presence. Fortunately, we don't need to worry about the issue at the moment because our signals to outer space probably won't reveal us to any advanced species anytime soon. Or maybe we should actually be worried if Grusch's claim turns out to be true. Thanks for watching another episode of Space Trailway. While you're still here, make sure to click the video on your screen for more mind-blowing videos about space.